Today we're going to talk about what are my top 5 bourbons of the year so far. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever, and today we have some big updates. I did a major overhaul of my studio here. I got some new lighting, put up this new backdrop here. I am not the most handy of people. I went and bought this backdrop up, put it up, and I originally used packing tape to try and keep it up. That was an absolute utter failure. Went and got some finishing nails, got it hung up right. Also got some lighting back here for the bottles. If you enjoyed this new setup, let me know. I'm constantly trying to improve it, change it a little bit here. I'm not a professional YouTuber by any means, so any input is greatly appreciated. Before we get into my top 5 bourbons of the year, I want to throw an honorable mention out there, and it is the Bardstown New High Wheated Bourbon. Now, the juice inside this bottle I don't think is worth top 5 of the year status, but every bottle on my top 5 is almost unobtainium. These are bottles that are very hard to get. They were limited release, and the price tag on them also is rather high. So I would highlight at least one bottle that is on the shelf, probably in most retail stores across the country, and I think it is a great value, and it is the new Bardstown High Wheated. Coming in at a little under $50, I think this is a great value right now on the marketplace. Bardstown is doing a great job releasing a bunch of new products that are reasonably priced, and I would actually really enjoy to do this line up with the other ones they've released recently. Previously the rye was my favorite, but I think this one would beat it. I'm definitely gonna need to do them side by side to see which one is better. That rye is a little more expensive though. I think it's $70, maybe $60. So this one is about 10 to 15 cheaper. I'd also really love to do a blind between this and the Weller 107. They're only a proof point off, and they are both wheated mash bills. I wonder if Bardstown did that on purpose to be very close to the 107. But yeah, that might be another video that I do, is blinding this with the Weller 107, because I think that would actually be a pretty good blind. Now, when most people do their end of the year best of bottles, they include the best bottles they can get. But the issue with that is a lot of times they're just bottles that the average person just can't find. They're very limited, and the price on them is really high. If you'd find value in me putting together a list of maybe the top 10 shelf available products that came out in 2024, let me know in the comments below. That's a video I'm thinking of making, just because while I do enjoy making videos of the best whiskey that came out that year, it also is a little painful because there's bottles that most people aren't gonna find. So I've personally been debating just putting out a list of my favorite shelf bottles that came out this year. But if that's something you're interested, let me know. Okay, coming in at number 5 on my list that I was able to get this year is my President's Choice. This is barrel number 44. I am an absolute fan of this bottle. It is magical and everything you'd want from Old Forester. However, I have to caution people out there looking to chase these bottles. In the first 5 or 6 years, Old Forester only released like 30 of these bottles, but in the last 6 months to a year, they've released almost another 40. They're up to like 80 or so on the list here. And with Old Forester releasing that many bottles that fast, it's really hard for me to believe that all 40 of those bottles that were released this year taste just as good as the 35 they took them 6 years to release. And with every one of these bottles being a single barrel, I think you're gonna find some significant variation between the bottles. For instance, my brother got a bottle roughly around the same time as this. I want to say it's like 42 maybe, and I was a little underwhelmed with that bottle. I don't think it was worth $200. I think it would have been a fine Old Forester Blue Label, like on the top end of one of those bottles, but to me it wasn't necessarily near like the $200 price tag. Whereas this bottle here, I do think is worth the $200 price tag, but given the variation and just how much they've released lately, it's hard for me to say that everyone else should go and chase these, because they're gonna be top 5 of the whiskey for you out there. But for me, I am glad that I was able to get this specific one. Now, when some channels do their top lists, they'll exclude single barrels just because there's so limited production. Like, the odds of anyone getting this barrel or being able to even find this barrel is almost impossible. So talking about it doesn't really serve the community much value. But for me personally, I want to talk about what bottles I was able to get this year and what matched my palate and I was really enjoying. And I'm gonna do a blind at the end of the year where I include the bottles I got from this year, do a big blind and actually see what actually comes out on top, not just what I think will come out on top. So I'm currently debating if I'm gonna include this one or not. I think I will, but I'm on the fence about it. Okay, coming in at number 4 on the list is Michter's. This is a 24A. Now the 23As were the ones that were really sought after last year, so I was super happy to be able to get a 24A, and this one is absolutely amazing. I'm gonna start chasing these Michter's tins every year if I can. I have the 23A behind me, and I was able to try them side by side, and the 24A is, I think, just as good when I opened it. I haven't gone to this lately, so I need to do another blind with them next to each other. When it first opened, it was a little tight. It had a lot of the same notes as the 23A, but it just hadn't quite opened up yet. But as more air has gotten into this bottle and I've gone through it, it is matching what in my mind the 23A was, but I'm definitely gonna need to put these side by side now that they both have a good amount of air in them, just to see how much difference they are. But in my mind right now, I think they are pretty similar. It'll be interesting to see how this does in the air blind. It is a low proofer coming in under 100 proof. Typically those can falter more in big blinds, 20 plus bottles. Your palate gets fatigued a little bit. That's another thing I'm gonna have to try and think about this year. I like doing them all at once because everything was on the same playing field. Your palate changes day to day based on what you're eating, just how you're feeling. So doing them all in one session I thought was fair. However, it does disadvantage bottles like this that are lower proof. So I'm debating maybe I'll do sets and rate them by different categories or something. I think that would help bottles like this, but at the same time, when you don't do them all in the same sitting, there are other variables that can come into play. Okay, for these next 3 bottles, I think they're gonna be very hard to beat. I know we have a lot of great bottles coming out, Four Roses, Makers coming out with theirs, all the BTACs, all the Pappies, and a couple other limited releases are coming out here in the final months. The 13 Colony Double Oak is coming out. And some of those bottles could beat these, but I think it's gonna be very hard for these top 3 bottles to get beat. And coming at 3 right now is the 13th Colony's 15th anniversary bottle. This is coming in at a nice 139 proof, but it does not shrink like a hazmat at all. I absolutely love this bottle. I would definitely want to get backups of this. Now there's a similarity between the top 3 bottles here. They all have a nice dusty jam note to them. I've been chasing Dusties lately and just love the notes I'm getting in these, and all 3 of these bottles kind of give me those hints. But if you're a 13th Colony fanboy, this is the bottle that you should try and go get. It is very different than every 13th Colony release I've had. I've had their single barrel rye, single barrel bourbon. I've had the small batches of both. I've had hazmat releases of both, both. I've had the Double Oak batch 1 and 2, and this one is drastically different than all of them and much, much better. I am glad I went and got this bottle. I had to go to the distillery, fly all the way to Georgia. I made a video on it. You can check it up here in the corner of me going out and getting the bottle and tallying up all the costs it required me to get this bottle. The cost, spoiler alert, cost more than secondary to get it, but I am super glad that I went and got it, and I would do it again. Okay, number 2 on the list today is the Russell's Reserve 15. Another amazing bottle here. This is super dark. A lot of people talk about color, but this one is especially dark, especially when you compare it to the Russell's 13s. And it's just an absolute magnificent pour. This is one that I do have a backup bottle of, and I am super, super happy to have it. It is an expensive bottle. Like, this is $250 retail, not even secondary. Retail, it's at $250. $250 is a lot to pay for a bottle. But if you're someone who's looking for a special occasion bottle, you're gonna only pay that up once, maybe twice a year. This is the one that you go and get. It is absolutely special. There's a lot of bottles out there that cost $200, and there's not really $200. They're a dime a dozen, but this one is one that I am super excited to have, especially next year. They drop it down to the Russell's 13 labeling, so it'll be interesting to see if they go up and down. Maybe we'll see another 15 again, maybe even higher. The releases they go out, but if they don't go back up to the Russell's 15 age statement again, I think this is gonna be a very cool bottle to keep in my collection and sip out and sample to people. Okay, the final bottle on the list, and coming in at number 1, is the Old Fitz, the 13 year. This is a special bottle because of the history behind it. This was some of the first juice coming out of Bernheim right after Heaven Hill acquired it. If you know the history of Heaven Hill, they had a huge fire at their main campus. They lost their still, all the warehouses, all their whiskey. So Heaven Hill had to go out and buy another still for their production, and they bought the Bernheim facility. So Heaven Hill distilled this in the late 1990s. I want to say it was 1999. Don't quote me on that. But they aged it for 13 years. They tasted it, said it was fantastic, and what they did was they went and vatted it to stop the aging process. They didn't want to release it at the time. They were saving it for some special release, and they decided to release it now. What's really cool about this is that it was distilled 25 years ago. So it basically is a present day Dusty. The issue with buying Dusties today is you just don't know the conditions they were stored in. You don't know if they were stored in direct light, the heating. It's just, there's a lot of different factors that can mess the whiskey up, the taste profile from how it was stored, and you just don't always get that type of information when you're buying them. But with Heaven Hill vatting this at their facility, this is in about as the best condition you can get whiskey, Dusty whiskey stored and not be altered too much from when it actually came out of the barrel. So if you're gonna go out there and you want an Old Fitz in your collection, definitely try and get this year's 13. It was a distillery only release. There are a couple more still trickling out of the distillery, but I don't know how many more they have left of them. But this one is a very special whiskey. It's nothing like the other Old Fitzes. Like I have an Old Fitz 10 back here, and it's really just not that great, to be honest. It's not worth the price tag, but this Old Fitz is 100% worth it, and I would love to have a backup of it. So that's my list of my top 5 bottles going into allocation season here. Stay tuned for the end of the year when I put these in a massive blind to see how they end up. If I had to guess, not all 5 of these will actually be in the top 5. There will be some surprise bottle that beats them out, and you'll want to stay tuned to see which one that is. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, so you don't miss when those videos come out. But if you're enjoying this content, before you head out, check out this video or this one. And until next time, cheers.